A nation stands on the brink. Millions demand a different future. The world is watching Iran. Since late December 2025, massive protests have filled the streets of cities across the country. These events started with anger over a failing economy. The price of food was too high. The national currency had lost its value. But soon the protests grew much larger. People were no longer just angry about money. They began to demand an end to the Islamic Republic itself. These demonstrations have become the largest and most serious challenge since the 1979 revolution. The scale of the unrest has shaken the foundations of the state. Amid the images of brave protesters, a familiar name returns. That name is Reza Pahlavi. The story begins with his grandfather, Reza Shah, a tough military officer who seized power and founded the Pahlavi dynasty in 1925. He centralized the state, built railways, and created a modern bureaucracy and schools. He moved to curb the power of the clergy and push secular legal reforms. And he insisted the world call his nation by its ancient name, Iran. In 1941, fearing his tilt toward Germany, the Allies invaded. Reza Shah was forced to abdicate. His son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, took the throne. He launched the White Revolution in 1963, land reform, privatization, and women's suffrage. Oil wealth funded growth and social change. Reza Pahlavi was born in 1960, named Crown Prince in 1967. By 1978, he was training as a fighter pilot in Texas. But the regime's autocracy and Savak's brutality bred deep resentment. The 1953 coup scarred legitimacy and inequality widened. The White Revolution promised bloodless modernization. Land reform broke big estates. Millions got plots. Women gained the vote and entered public life. State factories were sold to private hands. A national literacy drive reached remote villages. Growth was rapid. Dams, highways, airports, new cities. A vibrant urban culture flourished. But modernization was uneven. Rural migrants packed poor neighborhoods. Wealth clustered around the court and big business. Defense spending soared as basic needs lagged. Politics were tightly controlled. Savak watched students, writers, and workers. Dissent meant arrest, prison, even torture. A modern economy under an unfree state. Anger built, a dangerous mix that would explode. By the late 1970s, opposition spanned students, leftists, Bazaris, and the clergy. From exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini denounced the Shah and called for an Islamic government. Protests and strikes paralyzed the country. Repression killed hundreds and then thousands. Funerals fed more marches. The throne wobbled. Concessions came too late. On January 16, 1979, the Shah left Iran. He never returned. 2 weeks later, Khomeini arrived to a hero's welcome. In April, a referendum abolished the monarchy and birthed an Islamic Republic. For the Crown Prince in Texas, a future vanished overnight. At 18, he lost his country, his role, and the throne he was born to inherit. The Pahlavi dynasty ended abruptly and dramatically. When revolution swept Iran, Reza Pahlavi was far away, a teenage cadet in Texas. His father wandered in illness and exile, dying in Egypt in 1980. On his 20th birthday, he declared himself Reza Shah II, a symbolic continuity, not an immediate claim. He returned to the US, completed a political science degree, and built a family life. He married and raised 3 daughters near Washington, D.C. He stayed close to the diaspora while keeping a public voice. Over decades, he shifted emphasis from monarchy restoration to universal rights and democracy. He called for a referendum so Iranians could choose a republic or a constitutional monarchy. The message sought a broader coalition beyond traditional royalists. For 4 decades, he remained a constant critic of the Islamic Republic. Articles, speeches, radio, and satellite TV carried his message into Iran. With the internet, he spoke directly to younger Iranians. He offered solidarity to prisoners and encouraged civil disobedience. Tehran branded him a foreign tool. Others in the opposition kept their distance. Admired by some, distrusted by others, polarizing yet persistent. He emphasized secular governance and individual freedoms, and reintegration with the international community, not a king seeking a seat, a patriot seeking a path. In late 2025, protests over inflation became a nationwide uprising. Demands shifted from economics to ending the republic. Security forces responded with extreme force. Reports say thousands were killed. By early January 2026, authorities imposed a near-total communications blackout. On January 7th, Reza Pahlavi called for coordinated protests, voices from windows and streets at set times. Days later, he urged people to seize and hold city centers. Some chanted his name, invoking a secular past. He announced he was preparing to return if victory came. Amid global warnings and scrutiny, his role moved to the center of debate. Supporters see him as a unifying figure with unmatched name recognition. They cite his calls for a referendum and a secular democracy. They believe he can help end isolation and guide a peaceful transition with amnesty. Critics recall dictatorship, repression, and corruption under the Pahlavis. They argue leaders must emerge from inside Iran, not from exile. Years abroad fuel doubts about his connection to daily realities. As of today, Iran's fate is being decided on the streets. Paths lead to change, conflict, or a hardened status quo. Only the people of Iran can choose and sustain a common vision. Is he relic or bridge? His influence rests on inspiring and uniting those inside Iran. The final answer belongs to 85 million Iranians.